talk about the telecom space. Prashant Singhal from EY is with us, as well as Nitin Soni. Prashant, let me start with you. What do you make of these base prices for 5G auction coming in versus what was it earlier? And you speak to a lot of industry people as well. So what was the demand in terms of a cut?
I think I think it's good that TRAI and finally there's been some reduction in prices. The question is it enough or not? And if we just look at the prices for recommended prices by TRAI for 5G, I think we're still much higher than when it comes to some of the other countries globally. If you look at Germany or UK, India would still be with the revised 40 million in 3300 to 3600 megahertz band, would be still 3 to 4 times the prices, whereas the revenues that the telecom sector in India makes is just about 0.5 or 0.6 of the revenues which are being made in some of the other countries. So clearly, with the current state of the industry, I think the prices are clearly high unless we see we see the ARPUs doubling over the next few years to have a sustainable 5G service. I think the prices will need to further be relooked at, or the entire model of spectrum auction should be relooked at by the government.
Right. Nitin, your first reaction, and then we can go into details about the data on 5G that has come in.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. So I agree with Prashant that the cut which we have seen from TRAI of 36 to 40% is not enough. Clearly, India is one of those markets where monetization of data has proven to be quite challenging, as we have seen during the last 5 to 8 years for 4G services. And if you look at the 5G business case, it is going to be challenging for telecom companies to improve their average revenue per user and asking for a higher price on the 5G speeds, because at the moment there is hardly any application which an average consumer would need 5G for. All the needs of an average consumer, whether it's Netflix or YouTube streaming, is pretty much addressed by the 4G speeds. So given these prices, we feel that it is going to be challenging for telecom companies to bid a large amount at these prices and then make a reasonable return on investment.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is Nentar also joining the conversation. Prashant Singhal, I'll come to you first. I was having off-record conversations with folks at Vodafone as well as Bharti Airtel and Jio. Their belief is that worldwide, given the chip shortage and what's happening in the US and America and Europe, is that telcos are actually cutting back on 5G investments. Your device prices are up, things are more expensive, and in India they seem to be wanting to get back to or increase ARPUs to 300, 400 kind of levels. Merit in that kind of logic when India also was worried about missing the 5G buzz?
Yeah, so hi Nandara. I think so clearly there's no incremental revenue which is coming from 5G. I think the use cases for 5G which are being talked about, and I think we see that every year even in the Mobile World Congress, the commercialization and monetization of use cases is not happening. If you were to look at globally, including Europe and US, the ARPU increase since the 5G launch, the ARPUs have remained stable. It's not that the ARPUs have gone up. In fact, in some of the countries, the ARPUs have come down, and in some, they may be fractional increase. So the investments which are being made on 5G, they're not being repaid or they're not being rolled back, right? There's no return on that incremental investment. So, that's the reason I'm saying in India, one needs to relook at, is this spectrum auction or getting an upfront fees the best thing to do for 5G? Or if you want 5G, then should we just go back and relook at what was done in early 2000 of making everything as revenue share? And now we have a double whammy, which is a revenue share and a auction price, right? So a fixed price or upfront price. I think for 5G to be successful, it should be relooked. The entire model should be the regulatory framework should be relooked.
Okay. We of course seen the last time round when 5G auction took place, not a single bid that had come in. Nitin Soni, the another board of contention going into the final recommendations was the government toying with the idea that should corporates and enterprises get their own 5G, that will be for their own captive use. Any update on that? When you look at the final recommendations, the operators were, of course, a very worried lot, led by Bharti Airtel, which has the largest market share for enterprise solutions.
Yeah. So I think we have seen some recommendations from the TRAI coming in and which suggest that there are options available for captive wireless private networks, which enterprises can seek during the auctions. And also they do have the option to lease the spectrum from the telcos itself and establish their own isolated private network. So those are the options available for the enterprise. But I mean, in my sense, it would be very limited. It would only be limited to very large enterprises which would, try to get their own spectrum directly from the government. Otherwise, I would feel that most of the enterprises would go with leasing the spectrum from the telcos rather than, getting their own spectrum from the government.
And of course, where will ease of doing business be? More licenses are going to be thrown into the fray. Right now, industry just not happy with the payment terms as well as the auction price. They were wanting a cut of 95%. Nowhere close to that. Payment terms simplification also being sought at a time when 5G globally is not adding to companies' revenues. Prashant, Singhal, Nitin Soni, thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us today morning.